Hey Glam Babe, Xtina here. Time to play with Moonlight and Moonshadow. In this video, we're going to be using everything that launched in the Moonlight and Moonshadow collections. So whether it is that you have the Moonlight palette, the Moonshadow palette, or the Moonshadow palette with the Moonlight accent color, this video is for you. It's super detailed for you to be able to play along. Now, I prefer the Moonlight, so that's what I'll be using in this video, but you're welcome to use either color combination. So we're starting out with primer. You will see that as I'm putting on primer, the brush that is definitely preferred here is the Dual Camouflage Stamper brush. Notate that the brush is loaded on both sides quite generously. And what I can tell you from expert experience is that if your primer is skippy, like you don't have enough on your brush, your eyeshadow could potentially also be spotty. So with primer, more is actually better. Okay, now I flipped my brush upside down and I'm using the clean end with dry bristles to blend my primer into my existing foundation and make sure that I'm not really creasy. Great, moving on to eye number 2. Take a look at what my brush is doing right here. Little pro tip, I'm using the tips of the bristles like a pencil to really underline and carve out the arch of my brow to give it more impact. Another maneuver that you'll notice is that I'm turning my brush sideways at some points and even inverting it or putting it upside down so that I can get all the way down to my lash line for full coverage with the eye primer. Again, I really want to bring this one home. I'm flipping my Dual Camouflage Stamper over to the clean end and taking those dry bristles to marry my vanilla eye primer into the surrounding skin. Notate that before I came on camera, I did the rest of my base makeup. So at this point, you really want to make sure that you're blending and that there's not a line of demarcation where your primer stops or starts. We're going to call that touch points. Okay, we're ready, we're prepped and primed, and we get to move into the highlighter shade. The tool that I would prefer you have here is the XMH Beauty Oval Compressed Brush. Go ahead and load very generously both sides of that brush. You'll notice that I've got the handle pointed to the floor, and I'm carving out and really depositing a lot of color underneath the arch of my brow. This is going to give you tons of highlighter impact. Notice the pat press motion that I have in place, and also that I'm not afraid to reload more highlighter onto this brush in between eyes, or even if I felt like there wasn't enough highlighter deposit. This is crucial that you're generous with how much highlighter you're using and that you're using this pat press motion to really drive your highlighter into your eye primer. A couple long sweeping motions to blend, and we're ready to move into a different zone. Okay, babe, we're adding a tool, the Fluffy Crease Brush. Load up your Fluffy Crease Brush with that same highlighter color, the lightest shade in this palette, and I'll have you pat press around the tear duct zone of your eye space. Moving into transition, yay. Okay, we're staying with the Fluffy Crease Brush and loading in the transition color. The goal here is to apply mostly on your brow bone above your natural crease of your eye. Now, everybody's is going to be slightly different, but demonstrating it here, your goal is to aim for brow bone, starting at the outer edge and taking your transition color approximately 70% of the way across your brow bone. Your landing point that you're aiming for is the inner corner of your brow, not the inner corner of your eye, like where your tear duct lives. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, you'll notice that the motions that I'm using are like tiny back and forth motions to deposit and to blend. So it's not the pat press motion, it's a very lightweight back and forth motion to deposit. Okay, once you've got that done, we want to blend. Now this is definitely the difference between a novice makeup artist and someone who's a little bit more skilled and artisan, and that is to use a bigger, softer, more crafted brush for blending, and that is going to be your Color Wash Genius. Okay, moving in the exact same protocol on eye number 2, we're depositing that transition shade, starting the outer edge of the eye, across the brow bone, aiming for the inner corner of the brow, not the inner corner of the eye. And what you'll notice here is that the transition color isn't going to stick as hard to the places on your eye space where you already have highlight. Doing your makeup in this order is really going to serve you if you're not someone who's super skilled at blending just yet. So your transition color ends up sticking to the wet primer that is still available around your crease and brow bone, but it's not going to smear or end up sticking to your highlight zones, which are underneath your brow and in that inner corner of the eye. So you end up with a much cleaner look in the end. Okay, Glam Babe, you makeup super genius. It is time for accent shades. If you've got the Moonshadow palette, you're gonna load on that rich plummy purple. I'm working with Moonlight here, so I'm loading on my cool iridescent purple. Okay, pro tips for placement. Your accent shade is gonna go up to your natural crease and meet up with your transition color. Then flip your brush upside down and pat press your accent all the way down to your lash line. Make sure that there's no skippiness. You've got full color deposit using that pat press motion. And please take note that we did not cross over the highlight shade in the inner corner of the eye. Okay, reloading the brush with your accent shade. Again, this could be either Moonlight or Moonshadow. We'll repeat those moves on eye 2. I'd love to re-emphasize here that the goal in placement is that we're going up to the natural crease, taking the accent and making sure that we are really pack pressing into that lash line. However, we're not covering the entire lid space. We're taking it right up to where your highlight stopped, and we're also leaving the outer corner of the eye open, meaning there's still available wet or sticky primer in your outer corner of your eye. All right, Glam Babe, go ahead and drop that oval compressed brush and let's flip into the fluffy crease brush. Your goal here is to feather out either your Moonlight or your Moonshadow and make it marry and mesh into your inner corner highlight, and also let it blend in with your transition zone. Pro tip, make sure that that fluffy crease brush is nice and clean and you're using a very soft, lightweight feathering motion to achieve this blend. Your end result should be a nice, beautiful, seamless blend of your highlight, your transition, and your accent shade, but still having some available primer in your outer corners. Are you ready to intensify? Because I'm ready to intensify. Glam Babe, this is where the detail work happens, so make sure that you have the precision crease brush for your intensifier shade. Now, you should still have some primer available in your outer corner for your intensifier to stick to. Placement goals are, I'd like to see you apply your intensifier in the outer 30% of your actual eyelid space, aiming up for your natural crease, and then intensifying by depositing a little bit of your darkest color into your crease. The end result is something like a sideways V, a letter C, or a crescent moon. That's your goal here. To recap, you're getting the smoky eye effect by putting that intensifier where you still have available primer space, that little sliver in the outer corner, plus adding some intensity into the crease. Now let's blend it. All right, whenever you're using your deepest colors, your intensifiers, the darkest shades in your palette, you have a responsibility to blend it gorgeous. So let's make it gorgeous before we move on to eye number 2. All right, let's do the exact same protocol. Really drive this home on eye number 2. You're taking your precision crease brush, you're pat pressing into any available primer, and then making that sideways V shape going into the crease, then switching into the fluffy crease brush to blend it out. Meaning, when I say blend it out, I mean you want your intensifier to make friends with, marry, and mesh with your transition shade, and beautifully and softly flow with the rest of the eye look. Upper lid space is looking flawless. At this point, I always just take a look and check my symmetry and kind of go like, oh, is anything skippy? Do I need to add anything? Is one side higher than the other? And in this case, nobody's perfect. Mine needed a little bit more zhuzh. So in this point, I added a little transition and evened everything out before moving into eyeliner. Now, with this collection, we have the mauve mechanical eyeliner. It is a water resistant formula, which is great for tight lining, great for under eyeliner, super gentle for those who have irritated, sensitive eyes. And little pro tip here, I like to use whitening eye drops in addition to my eyeliner just to make everything pop and add more contrast. Take note that my placement for eyeliner is the outer 50% of the upper eyelid as well as underneath my lower lash line. So technically, if you love the look, you could stop right there. However, if you want a little bit more intensity, like your girl like Stina, we're gonna do some halo work. You girls are also very familiar with the halo technique. So just to recap what we're doing here, pro tips, make sure that you've got a small tipped brush like your precision crease. And personally, I'm going in and depositing the intensifier shade first, and I'm just gently smoking out my eyeliner and smudging my intensifier on the outer 50% of my upper eyelid and below my lower lash line. And now subsequently taking the silvery, delicious accent shade that has not yet been used out of this palette, and that's what I'm using for my under eye halo. Little pro tip as you're doing your halo work, make sure and close out your outer corner and give yourself that nice, delicious, crisp upward lift in the outer corner for anti-aging. I had minimal shadow fall, but if you get shadow fall, make sure and give it a quick cleanup. And we're ready to replicate those moves on eye 2. So just a quick recap. We've got eyeliner. I used mauve from the winter collection, and I'm using the precision crease brush. We're smudging out and depositing intensifier first wherever we put eyeliner, and then continuing the halo with our silver accent shade. I think you girls are getting this by now, but always check your blends. I'm going in with a clean, fluffy crease brush and really softening out and diffusing that under eye halo, giving it a nice, beautiful blend. And that's what's going to set you apart from a beginner makeup artist. It's just taking that extra second to diffuse and soften everything. No hard lines. I feel it's in order for you to just take a second and pat yourself on the back because you just slayed that eye look, okay? Time to brighten and do some cleanup. Now, if you have a ton of shadow fall, it might be necessary for you to clean it up with something besides powder, like maybe some foundation, etc. I didn't have a ton, so I'm moving straight into my dual press powder, and I'm brightening my under eyes a little bit, and I'm about to take the other end of this dual foundation blender brush and also make sure the inner corner of my eye is blended as well. Here's the thing, if you're tan or if there's a ton of contrast between your highlight shade and the rest of your skin color, it can be helpful and beneficial to go in this inner corner section and just diffuse and soften, adding a little bit of your dual press powder in the inner corner. And diffusing into the bridge of the nose. Okay, time for highlighters. So excited to whip this one out. It is called Ice. This is part of the Mineral Icing Sugar family. It is a super high reflective mineral highlighter that perfectly suits areas like your apples of your cheeks. You could circle it around above the brow. It's fantastic for in between the eyes, inner corner highlighting, bridge of nose highlighting, doing the Cupid's bow, really anywhere that you would typically highlight. That is the intended purpose here. Now, if you are someone who is an N2, an N25, a C25, or a C3, this would be a fantastic facial highlighter. It may be a little bit too light though for those of you who are in the C5 or deeper category foundation. So just a little pro tip there. We're incredibly excited as a brand to bring in that ice highlighter to our Mineral Icing Sugars collection, especially for our very, very fair babes in the middle of winter. Okay, and ooh, I just noticed that my lashes looked a little dusty from doing my eye makeup, so I chose to go in and really emphasize my lashes using the Glow water-resistant mascara, and voila. Okay, that's super pretty. Let's top this look off with a lippy Meet Chill. This is a new fan favorite. It has sold out multiple times. Chill launched with Moonshadow, Moonlight, and that ice highlighter, and they all pair well together because they all have a rosy or purple undertone. Okay, loving the final outcome. Super pretty. Love that highlight. Love these palettes. Love Chill. Okay, super fan. Hoping that that was very easy for you to follow, whether you have Moonlight or Moonshadow. And Glam Babe, at the end of the day, remember, when it's time to take this off, I want you to be super loving and super gentle. If you do not have this yet, this is a makeup artist must-have. Every makeup connoisseur, if you're gonna wear these bold colors, use primers, use highlighters, and have these long wear looks, at the end of the day, you want a really, really seamless, gentle way to take everything off and be baby kind to that skin. So be sure the next time that you are shopping on xmhbeauty.com to wander over into the skincare section and grab the Glow Essential Cleansing Oil. It's in the pre-cleanse category. This happens before your facial cleanser, and it is a super gentle way to break down high pigment eye looks, to take off multiple layers of makeup, meaning your foundation, concealer, and pressed powder, plus your contour. And it's actually really great at taking off high pigment lippies like Chill Matte Liquid Lip Color. Make sure and pop it in your cart. Experience this. It's amazing. You don't want to go without it. Glam Babe, thank you so much for tuning in for this episode of how to utilize your Moonlight and Moonshadow palettes. You can get your hands on these bad boys right now at xmhbeauty.com, specifically the Moonshadow palette, and you can also purchase the Moonlight accent shade separately. Show us in the comments how you did with this tutorial. Love ya!
When you see him, notice on me. When you see him, notice on me. When you see him, know that that's on me right there. When you see him, notice on me. When you see him, notice on me.